Hi everyone, welcome back to Winging It. My name's Rebecca and I'm going to be taking you through today's tutorial. If you're new to our channel, you are very welcome. Please don't be put off by the fact that this is week 29. Each of our projects is a standalone piece and we're putting it together into a book, but you could make just one or as many of the projects as you like. Now, if you've been following over on Instagram, you'll know that this week's prompt is ocean, and we're going to make a really lovely beach scene using our fabric scraps that we've got left over from other projects. So you're going to need to have a dig through your scraps bin and see what you can find. I'm also going to throw in some bits of lace and ribbon, and because it's me, there's got to be some beads in there somewhere, so we'll throw some of those in at the end. I'm also going to be using some variegated threads, and we've used these before in the last couple of videos, so if you've got some of those handy, that would be great. If not, just ordinary sewing cotton, ordinary embroidery thread, anything you've got will do. This is a project that can be adapted to whatever you have in your stash. So grab all your bits and pieces and let's get stitching. My first idea was based around the picture of the Great Wave, and I thought this might make quite an interesting piece of art this week if we overlaid different fabrics, maybe use some lace or some stitching for the foam on the waves. But I'm always going to lean towards something original, an original design. So although I'm very tempted by a recreation of this, we have done something based on a painting before, and I wanted to do something a bit different. My next idea was a fairly simple seascape where again we could use layers of different fabrics to create the sea and the sky, almost make a sort of mini textile landscape, and I thought it might be quite fun to put in some little boats, maybe a pop of a different colour other than blue, just to make them really sing. I thought we could have some fun with our stitches, making some clouds as well. So this was a very tempting idea. Then I thought about perhaps doing something a bit more with the sky taken out, focusing on blue, and maybe creating some waves breaking on a shore. And I quite liked the idea of making some sun rays coming across the water, making it sort of look like it was sparkling. But what I finally landed on was a sort of bird's eye view of that idea of waves breaking on a beach, and I thought we could do all sorts of things with fabrics, and maybe if we've got some little buttons or charms, we might be able to put some shells on the beach. But I thought this would be a really lovely mix of maybe some neutrals with some blues, the neutrals just in this corner for a bit of sand, and then layering up fabrics to create that effect of water coming onto the shore. And there's lots of opportunity for using our chain stitches to create the surf. So this is the idea I'm going to go with. I'm going to be working on this petrol blue, sort of dark teal felt, and I've just marked out my border. I don't know how much of this will show, but I will try and leave some little bits peeking through. I've also got some normal sewing threads just to anchor fabrics down. I've got some variegated blues here that are more the sort of teal aqua. This really was what inspired me. I've also got some of this cottage garden threads. This is Sail Away number 413, and I thought it had just a lovely mixture of those dark blues at the ends and this almost sort of ochre colour towards the centre of the length of thread. I've also grabbed a load of bits of fabrics in beachy colours, so I've got a couple of neutrals. We're not going to need a lot of that. I've got some sari silk, I've got some of our metallics, I've got some of the dreaded lame that gave me so much trouble in the week where we did the half pepper. I've got some almost furry, it's like very heavy velvet in white, because I thought that might be nice to do our waves. I've got some spider's web that I thought might create some interesting effects. I've got bits of lace, and I've also got some of this t-shirt yarn, and if you watch the live stream where we just dropped stuff, June's live stream, we used some of that then. It can be quite tough to get a needle through, so you need to make sure you've got a sharp needle. I've also got some wide organza ribbon, and I've got a couple of other bits of ribbon, and I've got some tiny fabric scraps in some blues there as well. So we're just gonna make it up as we go along. So I thought we could start by trying to create some sand. So I'm just gonna cut strips really, and I'm just totally making this up. I have no plan. I've got a sort of rough idea of what I want it to look like, but we're going to mostly make this out of strips. I'm not worrying about the fact that it's fraying there at all. I'm just going for it. So we're just getting strips. I've got a corner here that's quite handy, so that will form my corner. I wonder whether I should just put a little bit more distance. Just a little bit more coverage so it comes a little bit further in. Something like that. So before I forget what I'm doing, I'm just going to tack these down. So I've just got some white thread, and if you want to, you can use a bold coloured thread that you can take out. I'm not going to worry about it. I just worried about picking that up and everything moving, so I'm just going to put a couple of pins in to hold it in place, and then I'm going to just tack, so fairly big stitches. So what I'm going to do is create a sort of ground, a base collage, and then embroider over the top. Just want to hold these little scraps of fabric down. Now we're just going to build up these layers bit by bit. When I'm tacking, I don't really want to go over my border because I will be trimming this back, so I don't want to stitch where I'm going to cut the threads, so just be aware of where your border is. Just to save me having to manage it all the time, I'm just going to trim these little bits back just ever so slightly. So we've got a bit of sand to start us off, and I'm going to start at this corner. I've got this dark teal, and I thought that if I just cut the corner off again, I thought that could start us up there. What I'm going to try and resist is too much faffing around, because we could spend hours trying to get the perfect seascape, but I just want something that's reminiscent of the ocean. So that's my starting point at the back, and I want to work sort of dark to light. So I've got a bit of t-shirt yarn here. So let's have a bit of this. I don't want everything to be following the same angle. Now, t-shirt yarn tends to curl up like this, so you make it by cutting strips out of t-shirt fabric, and then you pull them, and when you pull, it sort of naturally curls in, and you can use them that way round, to get a sort of smooth dome, but I want to create something more textured, so I'm going to use it curl side up because I think that will look quite interesting. Then I've got this sort of dark blue with bits of grey and white. This is a patterned one that I thought might be quite interesting. It's still dark, but place it around there. Just trying to get ideas for myself and work out what I'm going to put in. I've got some of this sari silk, which is beautifully frayed and textured. I want that a little bit further forward, I think. And then I've got some more, this is sort of a royal blue. And again, there's a smoother side and the wrong side is quite textured there, and I like the frayed bit, so I think that's going to go in there somewhere as well. And I've got this teal lace, I've got a little scrap of that. This is featured periodically in a couple of different pieces that we've done. So maybe I have that maybe underneath, a little bit further forward. And let's get some fabric scraps in there because it's very, very textured at the minute. So I've got this graduated checkered fabric, so we can get a little bit, I like the fact that it's got a white bit there that I can make use of, and the darker bit might be nice tucked in somewhere like that. Oh, now I've got a bit of denim here that's very frayed, and I quite like the fact that a lot of denims are sort of woven with white in, so there's a white thread going through there and then lots of blue threads, so you get that white sticking up, and this very frayed edge might look good coming forward, so it looks sort of almost surfy. So let's pop that there. Right, I think we need to have a look at some of these metallics. Let's get a little bit of this turquoise that we've used. We use this a lot in Cold Colours month. Pop that in there. That could go over the top and just break that up a little bit. And then we've got this more textured one that I think we also use in Cold Colours month. Let's put that a little bit further forward. I might already have too much on here, we'll see. And this lovely sort of baby blue lame, let's have a strip of that. That needs to go close to the shore, I think. What if we put it just underneath there like that? This is all going to be about just layering up, experimenting, seeing what you can create as you play with your fabrics. I quite like that. Right, so let's do some pinning and then I can tack it in place. I quite like how that's shaping up so far. Now, I know I've got some sheer fabrics and I haven't used any yet. We'll come to those because they will look really nice laid over the top. And this one I'm going to tack with some blue. I'm not bothered about the tacking stitches coming out, but I don't want them to be the main focus either. So again, I'm just tacking with fairly large stitches, and you might see as I'm going, I'm just pulling the fabric back to create some lumps and bumps. And I'm really not worried about that. I want this to be very textural. So we're just gonna let the fabric sort of ruffle up using some, in a sort of gentle way, we're using some of our fabric manipulation techniques that we did a few weeks back, just to make sure the fabric's going where we want it. So again, I'm just going to trim these bits back ever so slightly. Just to make it more manageable while we're working on it. Hundreds of fibres everywhere. Look, the lame's at it again. Right, so now we can have a little bit of a play with our sheer fabrics and maybe some of this white fluffy stuff. So I'm just going to cut a very thin strip. I don't want it to be too thin because it frays really badly, but I want a couple of those, and I've got some beige spider's web, and I've got some white and a bit of blue, and let's also get some lace in and our ribbon. So we can have a play with these, and I've got that sheer ribbon. So let's see what we can add by putting some of these on. Right, I quite like this white lace here because it's going to look a little bit like surf along the edge. It's a little bit deep. Maybe I cut that in half. Just want that sort of ripply edge. Oh, I like that. Let's pop that on. And I thought this blue would, because it's translucent, it would make a really great water's edge. So if I overlap it over the sandy bit, I thought that could work quite nicely. I sort of want it curving. Something like that maybe. And we can have a surf over the top. And I've got this bit of white. I wonder whether we could add some, if I just cut it roughly and unevenly like that, we could pop this in. Tuck it in places like that. Just to create bits of surf here and there. And let's add a bit of spider's web on the sand, just because I like the texture and it doesn't obscure what's underneath, but just add something different. Maybe there like that. I've got to sort of resist the urge to use everything. It's all so delicious, all of these different textures. think we can add those in. Let's get some of this blue mesh. Now you might not be able to see that. I will bring it up to the camera, but that just is magic. Thought it was about time we got the spider's web back out again. I love it so much. It's just such a fabulous texture, and we haven't used it for ages. I've got some white as well. It'll just look nice. Right, I'm gonna stitch a bit of this down. So we've added our base layer now, and it's time to add some stitching, and I've threaded up 2 strands of my cottage garden thread. Because it's variegated, we need to have a think about what thread is going to show up on what background. So if I started right at the back, my stitches are just going to get lost there because the thread is dark and the fabric base is dark. So I thought we could start right across the middle. We want our stitching to show up. So let's just start simple and do a line of chain stitches. I don't want them too small because I want them to stand out. What I don't want are straight lines, because waves don't come in straight lines. So I'm just sort of meandering across the surface here with my thread, and I love that it's already gone to that sandy colour in the middle. And all I'm going to do really is just overstitch this fabric background with some of our chain stitch variations. I might just put some running stitches in as well here and there, because I think that's gonna look really nice. And what we're doing is just taming the crazy fabric a little bit. And I just, as you will know by now, I love overstitching. I think it makes everything look beautiful. And so I'm never really going to be happy to leave a fabric collage without some embroidery over the top. And this is very simple, just lines of stitching. You could do it all with running stitch if you want to. If you're a fan of machine embroidery, then you could run backwards and forwards with your machine just with straight stitch. That could look really amazing as well. So if you are itching to get the machine out with all this hand stitching, then this would be a really great project for the machine. Okay, so if I bring it up close, I've got all sorts of chain stitches in here. I'm hoping that you can see. So I've got some twisted chain stitch here. I've got just regular chain stitch. I've got I've used some crested chain stitch along the edges to make some surf, and I've got cable chain stitch running along here. So I've got all sorts of chain stitches in there, and I've got running stitch here and there as well. Pretty happy with that so far. So if I get my trusty aperture in, we've got a much better sense of what it looks like without the ragged edges. So I'm really liking that. I particularly like the bits of spider's web that are here and there. I think it just makes it extra special. So what I'm going to do now is add in a little bit of sparkle, because you can't not, can you? So we've got these little bits of metallic that are poking through, which I really like, and lame fibres everywhere. But I thought we could add in some beads, and I was given a box of these sort of gemstone chips that are sort of all sorts of different stones there, and I've sorted out some that I thought might look nice, and I thought these would work particularly well on the sand if we just made a little sort of cluster of beads down here, maybe. And possibly some over here. We'll do that last. That's where I'm heading. I just wanted to show you what I had in mind there. And I've got these sort of, these are sort of pearlescent. They've got a sheen on them that I quite like. Got some blue ones here, sort of pearly, and these are silver lined beads as well that will look really shimmery. And then there's some more sort of icy blue there. So I've got a selection of beads that I can add in, and I thought it'd just be nice to do little lines of mixtures of beads here and there along the waves. So I'm using that technique that we've used before, where we thread up several beads and then we go back and put a little stitch over the thread. So I'm just bringing my thread up here and there and stitching over the top of that string of beads. So I'm just popping those in here and there. I don't want to overdo it, and I don't want to lose my stitching, but I thought this would be a nice little detail to add. I want to keep it pretty random. I'm really enjoying that. So they're looking really nice. I'm just going to put on these little pebbles on the beach. I want a couple of little clusters. I don't want them all totally blue, but I think it'd look nice to just create some interest down on this shoreline. You could also use little shells, I suppose, if you've got those, and I know you can get some resin beads that are shaped like starfish or seahorses. I don't happen to have any of those, so I'm just using what I've got. Just remembered I had some of these very sort of earthy toned beads as well, so I thought I would add in a couple of those just to enhance this cluster. And I'm not liking the fact that I can see the threads on these stones, so I thought if I could build up this cluster, it'll disguise those a little bit more. So there's our finished seascape. I absolutely love that. I'm so pleased with the way that's turned out. I wasn't sure, so there were several stages where I thought it wasn't going to work. If I just pop my aperture over the top, you'll be able to see the finished effect without the raw edges, and I just think that looks really special. yeah, really happy with that. So hope you've enjoyed that. We've just used some scraps of fabric and some simple stitches and a few beads and pebbles and things like that to create our little shoreline. Can't wait to see what you come up with the prompt ocean. Do share your creations at #FSHwingingit, and so that we can see all these pieces together, you can also add #FSHwingingit29. If you've enjoyed what we've done here and you want to do some more projects like this, you can find another similar project here, and I'll put a link up here to a video that's best for you. If you'd like to subscribe and get notified of all our uploads, click on the button down here, and that makes subscribing really easy for you. Have a great time making your ocean piece, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!